Now, there's some other things that happen in sleep that are relevant to sleep. So that's the two bits of the brain that are responsible for the turning on and the turning off. Now, another concept is the circadian rhythm. So this is a diagram to sort of give you a concept about sleep. So when we wake in the morning, if you think of this as how sleepy we should be, or how much sleep debt or sleep drive we have, you should wake with very little sleep drive. And then across the day, you gradually accumulate sleep drive. And then when you go to sleep, you burn off that sleep drive. And this is roughly 16 hours accumulating and 8 hours burning it off. So for every 2 hours you're awake, you need 1 hour of sleep. That's a rough sort of formula for how things work. Now, because across the day we don't feel progressively more sleepy across the day, we feel roughly the same across the day. And that's because, counteracting this, the brain has this system that props us up more and more and more as the day goes by. And then after 16 hours suddenly withdraws, and that's when you just get this thing in the evening, it's like, oh, right, it's time for bed. And then you go to bed, you have a window of opportunity where if you go to bed in around that 1 hour period around here, you'll go to sleep, or generally sleep well, until about 6 to 7 hours later when this alerting signal starts to kick in again. And this is the circadian rhythm that does this. And this comes from another part of the brain, but that has to come through the hypothalamus, which is again affected by scar. So some people with scar can behave as if they don't have this type of circadian rhythm. Okay. Now, a good example in humans that you may all be familiar with who don't have circadian rhythms are babies. Newborn babies don't have a circadian rhythm. So even though a newborn baby might sleep on average 12 hours in a 24-hour period, they're not awake for 12 hours or sleep for 12 hours. You know, they're awake for 3, or awake for 2, or sleep for 2, or awake for 3, or sleep for 3. Okay? And that's because they don't have that circadian rhythm, the thing propping them up. So once they accumulate 2 or 3 hours of sleep drive, they're really sleepy, and they need to burn that off until the wake drive can then overcome that. And then they'll accumulate another 3 hours of sleepiness, and then sleep that off, and then accumulate another 3 hours and sleep that off. So in people who don't have a good functioning circadian rhythm, which can happen with scar, one of the patterns I see in adults is maybe they'll be awake for 6 hours and then need a nap for 2 or 3 hours, more like a long sleep than a nap for 2 or 3 hours, and then be awake for another 4 to 6 hours and then need a sleep for 3 or 4 hours, which is exactly the sleep that occurs in a baby, because babies don't have this circadian rhythm. So that's a bit about how sleep works and how it's relevant to scar and how scar can interact with the bits of the brain that control sleep. Alright, so what are some of the things I do? So as a doctor or a specialist who practices in sleep medicine, this is some of the stuff that I do. So this is a sleep laboratory where someone would come and stay the night, be monitored with things to monitor breathing, but also some of these leads that we use to monitor electrical activity and the brain and the legs and the heart. And then we have scientists during the night looking at the raw data. And then I replay all the data. This is an example of a sleep study. We've got 5 minutes of data, brainwave activity, so I look at EEG, muscle tone, eye movements, again EEG, to work out what type of sleep people are in, what's happening with the heart rate. This is breathing. Each time this goes up and down is one breath. That's airflow through the nose. That's airflow through the mouth, a band around the chest and a band around the belly, oxygen levels and a microphone. In this case, this person's just snoring. So with every breath, there's an up and down microphone. That's relatively normal sleep with snoring. And this is what we do with a sleep study. I'm going to talk about a couple of common sleep conditions that can occur with scar that have a slightly different mechanism to what I've already talked about, which would really cause symptoms of either feeling excessively sleepy during the day, or only being able to maintain being awake for a certain number of hours before you've got to have a nap and then awake and then a certain number of hours of sleep, or having problems with insomnia, problems not sleeping. So these are some other problems. So there's a condition called obstructive sleep apnea. Now, obstructive sleep apnea is extremely common in the population. Men in their 50s, once they start to put on weight, they come through. Very common for them to start snoring, gasping, choking during sleep. It's a very common condition. It's called obstructive sleep apnea, and it is where there's recurrent disruption of sleep related to breathing difficulties. and usually it's the airway getting blocked. And common symptoms here, snoring, gasping, choking, but also feeling tired during the day. Now usually obesity is the main risk factor. Men get it more than women up to the menopause. After the menopause, women get to catch up. But the other group that gets it, that's a bit underappreciated, is people with neurological problems, like SCAR. SCAR is a good example. Because normally when you breathe in, the brain sends a message to the tongue and the upper airway muscles for those muscles to contract, so that when you breathe in, the muscles aren't sort of sucked, closed. And there's got to be very close timing between the signal to the respiratory muscles to say breathe in, and the signal to the muscles in the upper airway to say contract, so that you don't get sucked closed. Now if there's a problem with those muscles interpreting that signal, either the signal being sent from the nerves or the muscles contracting, then you can get an incoordination with that. You go to breathe in, the muscles don't contract and the muscles will actually collapse. And that can happen with SCAR, and particularly with SCAR1, some of the cranial nerves, which are the nerves in the bottom part of the brain that control tongue muscle tone and some of the upper airway muscles, can be affected, so that it's a very common thing with SCAR1 to get relaxation in the upper airway as people are breathing in. So it's not like in the general population where you've got there's fat men who get this problem. It can happen just because of the neurological problems that can occur with SCAR.